Welcome to the Movement Podcast. This show is all about movement. We tackle it from different angles, bring on guests, answer questions, go on a few tangents, and give practical advice, giving you guys a better idea of how you can optimize the human body to be the best it can be. Let me give you a preview of what's coming up in this episode. On today's episode, we have Chris Poirier, owner of the fitness equipment company Perform Better. Chris is a major influence on today's fitness industry and a leader in education and product trends. Chris talks about starting Perform Better over 2 decades ago, how aligning education with products early on gave him a competitive edge, his strategies for running a better business environment, and what makes a great presenter. Chris gives us his take on what the gym model may look like post-COVID. They discuss the business of personal trainers, big box versus small gyms, and online training. He lays out characteristics of what makes a successful gym owner and how small gyms may be able to seize opportunity during this new normal. So let's get to business on today's Movement Podcast, powered by FMS.
So real happy and honored to have Chris Poirier from Perform Better on with us today. So Chris, how things going?
Lee, things are okay. You know, they could always be better, but it could always be worse as well.
Well, you're the glass half full guy, so I know things could always be worse. That's for sure. I mean, we're here today, we're kicking it, and I think things could always get better, and I think things are always going to continue to get better for someone like you and what you do, man.
Yeah, it's it feels just like I'm in a movie. Every single day, the same one. This is definitely Groundhog's Day.
Right now it's definitely Groundhog Day. Trying to navigate all the mess that's going on right now. But Chris, a lot of people in the strength conditioning fitness industry don't really know your history and kind of the road you've taken. I mean, I think quite honestly, I'll say this: you're probably one of the more influential people in the strength conditioning performance world. And kind of give us the roadmap for Chris Poirier over the last, say, 20 years, where you started it, because Perform Better wasn't even a thing. A lot of people don't know what Perform Better is or what it is, but that wasn't even a thing when you started, right?
Exactly. Well, first of all, it's very nice of you to say that. I don't consider myself in that category, but I just consider myself along with the ride. I'm just hopped on the bus. But 28 years ago, a little bit about my background, obviously, which I believe a little bit about. But I was, collegiate football player, coached high school football right out of college, and played overseas, played over in Europe for a year. And when I came back from Europe, I was in the midst of coaching. The season was the opposite time, but I wanted to do something. I didn't really want to coach anymore. I was going into my 3rd year of being a high school head football coach, and I wanted to do something. I knew my days of football were done. I had enough. I had my fill. Wasn't quite sure of what I wanted to do, but just so happened that a track and field company by the name of MF Athletic Company they were looking to branch off and to start a division that was to sell training equipment. And one of the markets they were looking for was football. So long story short, the owner of the company was a track and field coach at the university that I played football at. I knew the family, grew up in the same town that they lived in. And they thought it would be a good idea that if I came on to head up this division as being a football coach and having a football background, as that was our first priority, what we're going to look after or go after. And, sure enough, I started it at first, tough road the first 2 years, I should say, of trying to get going. We were a very, very small company. I don't know if we could rub 2 nickels together to do 5 seminars a year, to go to 5 seminars a year, never mind, do what we're doing today. But I liked the direction we were going into. I liked how we were doing it. We were doing it with education at first, and we were sponsoring educators. And, it's the nice thing that I am very fortunate with is I was given the keys to basically to do with Perform Better what I wanted to do. And at that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know all the fields we were going to go into or roads and paths we were going to go down. But it's been a nice road. It's been fun.
Well, Chris, give me the Perform Better mission, so to speak. I mean, I think, I definitely want to take a little different approach and talk about more of the business side and kind of how you've been able to grow the business to where you've been able to grow it. But what's the mission? I mean, what do you see as from where you started to where it is today? Has it changed any?
It really hasn't. Our first and foremost mission was always on service, always on customer service. So that was, we were big believers in treating people right and going above and beyond. And sort of we had that philosophy, and we started with that philosophy. And as you grow, it's one of those things that get tougher and tougher, but it still is our main mission here. It's still our central focus. We may have added in a bunch of different things around it with education, but we really just, everything really reverts back to us in customer service and how we handle a customer and do we make it a good experience to buy from Perform Better or to deal with Perform Better or go to a Perform Better seminar. So yeah, I think if your first and foremost mission is in service, I think everything else falls into place.
No, that's a great point. And again, for a lot of people that don't know, Perform Better, I mean, your primary, the business is equipment, and that's what you sell product, right? I mean, that's how you generate your revenue.
Correct. Yeah. Alan Cosgrove and a lot of guys on tour have that saying that, that when we're doing education, that a lot of, that Perform Better is an equipment company and we sell equipment. And yeah, equipment is, 98% of our business. That's our revenue. That's where most of it all comes from. That's where we make our living. That's what pays our bills. The education, on the other hand, is one of those things that helps drive the equipment sales, but it also is, it's one of those things for us that it's really a lot of fun. It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us updated. It keeps us current on new products. It keeps us looking for new products because we're always learning about what presenters in the top people in the industry are looking for and what they're trying to do. So, on the back end of our education, when we hear things, we're trying to maybe come up with something or make something a little bit better. Always trying to make that mousetrap a little bit better and make it a little bit easier for either the coach or the trainer or therapist.
Yeah. And your main clientele is the professional. You're not going out. You're not trying to get the end consumer, so to speak. I mean, your end consumer is that professional, is that strength coach, is that person that's, bringing in clients that have people. So you're the quality. You're more commercial. Assuming.
Yeah. Up until about 7 weeks ago, we were. Up till about 7 weeks ago, we were a B2B. I mean, we were a business to business company. We schools and universities and weight rooms. I mean, I always told people that who we sold our equipment to in the past was not necessarily 95% chance. It wasn't the people using the equipment. It was they're selling it. Either they're using it not themselves, but they're using it in their business or they're using it at their school for their athletes. It's 7 weeks ago, I think everyone had a huge pivot step and sort of we sort of became a consumer business overnight. With the help of a lot of our consumers, I've been telling a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, on one hand, we're fortunate enough to stay in business because of the consumer world and the home fitness, but we also know that consumer business is coming to us a lot from a lot of our trainers and coaches that are directing their clientele to come get stuff from us. So we've been very, very fortunate. And part of it, sometimes I go home at night and I'm sad that, that all of our customers or the customers that have been our true customers for the past 25 years, most of them are not even in business right now. Most of them places are closed. And it's, and the only thing keeping us open is them sending their customers over to us to buy equipment to get for their homes so they can do some online training. So, we're in a huge debt of gratitude to all of our customer base for obviously allowing us to be a consumer business while this is going on.
Now, I think what you're, kind of going back to what you said, the mission, what you felt like the mission of Perform Better has allowed you to transition and get through this area is the fact that your customer service is your main goal. You're always going to sell quality equipment. That's what everybody's going to say, they're selling quality equipment. But, and even from my perspective, that customer service and that loyalty you have from your consumers is what you've really built over the last 20 years. I mean, you got customers that you just said it, 25 years that have been your customers. I mean, that's pretty powerful. So Chris, let me ask you this question. So the one thing I've seen, and again, just thinking more along the lines of just general business. Again, I feel like that's where, you've been able to elevate yourself, is the one thing I think that any good leader in a business is I look at their employees. You have very little turnover. I mean, you've got some people that, you and I and FMS have had a relationship for probably going on almost 20 years now. And you got a lot of people that have been sticking with you for that long. What is, I guess my question, you can expand on this a little bit, is what's your advice to a lot of these people running businesses to really help create that environment that you keep this, again, I think that's a testament to you and what you've been able to do is where you don't have a lot of turnover with your employees. You got great customer service relations. What is some of that you've been able to learn? One thing over the years is some advice you can give to some of those people out there that are struggling, especially now with their businesses.
I guess first and foremost, it's probably, I know Mike Boyle told me this a long time ago, and, a lot of his advice is sound advice. And I guess the key is I've always listened to him with what he said. And, first and foremost is hire good people. I think good people you can mold, you can mold into, they can learn the products. They can learn about the ins and outs of the equipment and whatnot. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to hire good people and people that can talk to people that have a good work ethic. For us, and that's key to it. I think we can get them, and we can have them mold them into whatever they want. But some of our hardest workers are people on our team. It came from outside of this background, or just came, we've hired a couple people that came from our customer service department that did such an unbelievable job. It was like, hey, I want to bring them up to salespeople because they're amazing at customer service. And we always say that sales is an extension of customer service. We're really servicing them, and we're solving problems for our customers. I mean, most of our customers know what they want. We just have to get them what they want, or we have to get them in an area where it's either solving a problem that they're having, that they need something to fix it, and as long as we can do that and service that person as best we can, I think we're way ahead of a lot of most of our competition in that area.
Well, I think, Chris, it's the one thing I think you said, and I'm going to kind of get back to it and go a little bit deeper into this is the relationship. To me, that's where all of us in any business are trying to create retention. If you get a client, one thing it's hard to get a customer, right? But it's just as hard to keep them. And I think if you provide good customer service, you build that relationship, you're going to be able to keep those people. And that's not easy. And that's where the relationship, and I think, to what you guys have been doing over the last 20 years is providing education. And I think the insight you had going back, 25, 30 years ago to say you want to align education with product was in this industry was pretty insightful.
Yeah. It sort of was, it's one of those things that it was easy to see. I mean, when we first came into the industry, we were sponsoring speakers. So it was to go into education was like, hey, why don't we just do our own, we'll still sponsor presenters at different conferences, but if we had a couple of presenters and we started to do it. So we started to do it with a one day, and they started to be successful. And it was, our whole intent, our goal, we never had intention of making money in seminars. We just wanted to use it as an extension of, hey, we're already sponsoring speakers. Let's sort of create the platform ourselves. And, and since we started them in 1996, we started with one seminar up in Boston, a one-day seminar. And every year we just grew it. Every year we just added on. We got to 2001 and we started to add summits. We wanted to make them multi-days. So it's been a fun ride, and it was fun. It's fun watching them grow. And we didn't at first, we never took we never bit off more than we could chew. We've always progressed into the next year, and built them up and grew them. So, it was a very simple idea. And it was, at first it was a grassroots program because a lot of the equipment in functional training back in that time, I think functional training had a lot of misconceptions. There was a lot of people that thought it was something different. So we were trying to continue our education because, we didn't want to be that person that made functional training a circus act. You know what I mean? We know the negativity that functional training got, that it's one leg standing on a BOSU ball or a stability ball and squatting. And that's not what it was. They were never the principles. And, and even to this day, I get amazed because a lot of people talk about a product as being functional. Well, product's not really functional. It's the training that is what makes it functional. So it's never, it's never just a product that makes it functional. It's what you're doing with the product and how you're applying it. And so we always, as functional training started to grow, we always wanted to keep the education growing because we wanted to keep it in check. We didn't want to turn it into something that it wasn't.
No, I mean, Chris, that's one reason we've had such a great relationship is, Gray and I and FMS, we've never tried to align ourselves with any piece of equipment because we've kind of felt the same way. And I think that's why we've been able to, have this relationships, last for almost 20 years. The fact that we say the same thing, it's not about the equipment. The equipment is the extension of the person using it. But there's still equipment that's needed. So the education provides that bridges that gap between the equipment and the trainer, saying this is what you need to do. So that's really, really good statement. So, you talk about providing the education. This is one of the things that always amazed me, and a question I've always, you and I've talked about it quite a few times. But even when I started working with you, going on, I think my first presentation may have been 2005, maybe. How do you determine what makes a good educator? That may be the best way to put it.
There's a ton of good educators, Lee. There's a lot of people that have a lot of good information, that need to share. How do they share it in their presentation style, I think, is what makes, some people more effective of a presenter. How they handle the crowd. And as I've seen millions of presentations over the last 28 years. And I'm sort of like every conference I go to, I have to always step in and listen to someone because I just want to see how they handle themselves on stage, how they handle the crowd, and the information they have to say. But it never really comes down to, I'm never in a presentation where I hear something and say, oh, this is everything that this person's saying is just not good information. I've never said that to any presenter. So there's always every presenter that's up on stage has, first of all, they're not getting on stage unless they have good information. And a lot of people have good information. It's how they can handle themselves on stage. And a lot of times, again, I'll be blunt. We got lucky. We took a chance on people because they were good people, and we'd hope that they would be good on stage. I can go back and we can make this directly to FMS, and I can remember the first time hearing Gray and seeing Gray, and I don't know what it was about it or what it was showing the FMS. I thought it was interesting. I thought he had something really special, but it wasn't what he was showing. I thought it was pretty interesting what it was showing. It was just how he was talking, and how he gave the presentation. And I've always said this about him. He's just a very calm and soothing presenter that you could sort of listen to all day. And, he had some great analogies that, I think for me, as someone that was, not in the field, I came from coaching football. I wasn't in strength and conditioning, even though we were strength coaches for our team in high school. But as I was listening to Gray, when I listened to Gray, I was like, he was making a very complex topic simple for me. And that's the same thing with Mike Boyle. Mike makes very complex topics simple. And so that's sort of what I look at. And that's sort of I think that's what makes somebody a great presenter, is if they can make the difficult sound easy. And I think a lot of people are the same as me, is after they hear guys like that, they're like, geez, that sounds too easy. Why didn't I ever think of that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why when I when we kicked this thing off, Chris, is where I said you're the one of the most influential people that a lot of people don't know about, to be honest. And I think it's that your ability to identify people in the industry who, because everybody once they get their degree, they get a few letters behind their name, think that they have the right, and I'll say right, or ability to get up on stage and deliver something. But I think your ability to identify who really does have something to say that can explain it and get it out there and actually influence what's going on. And I do think that's where, I've seen Perform Better giving people those platforms, from people, I love going to the Perform Better Summits just to sit in the back of the room. And again, I've heard Mike Boyle speak, I don't know how many times. It's always good to hear him speak, but the people that you bring on that I have never heard of them, don't know what they're talking about, don't even know who they are, sitting in the back of those rooms and realizing, wow, there's some really neat stuff out there. And being able to identify that. And again, being able to present it and hold an audience's attention for an hour and 15 minutes is something different. I mean, yeah, you may have good content, but as you said it, if you can't, capture the attention of someone for that length of time, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. And capturing their attention, and it's usually it's funny. It's not about making a complex topic more complicated. It's about how simple you can make it. And I think the people that can do that, are the ones that obviously that rise to the top, and they're the ones that I think they seem to find their way as being in the top presenters. It's always that way. It's never the complicated topics that make them even more complicated on stage, because I think they lose a lot of people during that. And for me, it's always been about how easy you can, how simple you can make it. And it doesn't mean you have to make the information doesn't have to be simple. It's just how can you translate it and put it in a way. And one of the things I've always admired about Gray.
Let's not give Gray too much credit today.
Yeah,
Chris.
no, I don't want. I figured his podcast is on. Half the name is in his name, so I figured I'd pump him up. I'll get to you after, but
you'll get to me after we cut.
After we popped it, yeah. But he has a way with analogies, and that he can make a point come across in something completely different with an analogy that makes you like, oh yeah, I can definitely see it that way. And he's always done that ever since the first day I heard him was in 1999. I heard him at an NASM conference. That was literally, I talked to him on the phone a year before that, but that was the first time I actually saw him ever present or give a presentation. I was like, wow, I still to this day have to admit, I had no idea what he was talking about.
That still happens to this day with me sometimes.
But he actually started to get me thinking, and I maybe want to find out more about what he was talking about. So, yeah.
No, he definitely has that natural ability. No question.
All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll go a little bit deeper.
Facility Design, your one-stop shop for all your facility needs. Whether you're opening a small personal training studio, sports performance and rehab facility, or a major fitness center, Perform Better's facility design team will work with you from layout to installation to create the facility that will best meet your needs and budget.
So now back with Chris Poirier from Perform Better. Chris, the world's changed now, man. And I think it's going to be something that all of us, no matter what profession you're in, is going to have to be thinking about different things, that how we can pivot and do things different. In your, opinion and what you do, and again, seeing the industry, strength conditioning, fitness industry from your perspective, what are some of the things that, you see coming out of all this craziness? Because again, it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to be flipping a switch and getting back to normal, after all this. What are some of the things that you see that people really going to have to consider? And in your world, even talking about equipment and the way you, again, one of the things you guys have done over the last, I'll say 10 years and maybe longer, but 10 years really done a good job with, has been able to help people design their facilities. What are people going to have to think about now?
Yeah. that's obviously some of the things that I've been thinking about over the last 7 weeks of how things are going to change and what direction they are. And I think nobody knows. We're just in such a changing world right now that no one knows exactly where we're going to be in 6 months or where we're going to be in 12 months or 2 years. We can hope. I think one of the things that we're trying to set up, and one of the things that's nice about our company, because we're small enough and we're nimble enough that we can pivot quickly. We can change quickly. We can sort of change overnight in a direction to accommodate what is going on. But there are definitely going to be some changes. There's no doubt about that. I've been saying I'm not a huge fan of the new norm because it's, I'm a people person. I'm a hug and handshake kind of guy. I'm not, a wave guy. And I understand that's going to be, the distancing is going to be something that's going to be in our life probably for a while, or until we can, either get more information or get this thing under control. But we are going to have some changes. There's going to be some changes in clubs. From what I think, in my opinion, I think the smaller gyms, are going to have the smaller facilities are going to be more inclined and more ready to adapt and to make that change. The 1,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet that they can change and they can still be profitable in that realm. I think the big box gyms are going to have a tough time. I think it's going to be a bigger pivot. It's going to be a huge step for them to sort of change when we come into, how many people can be in your facility and what the rules are in there. But, I do believe that fitness and exercise are a big part.
Yeah. Chris, that's the thing. That's what's not going to change. What's not going to change? The need for exercise, the need for fitness, and the need for instruction. Right now people know, everybody knows they need to exercise. And right now I think it's probably more apparent than ever that the people that are suffering the most are the people that, do have these chronic diseases or do have a lot of these problems that exercise and nutrition can prevent. So the need is not going away, and the need for professional instruction is going to be needed more than ever. So it's how everyone pivots and deals with that.
Yeah. And that's, and the live or the online training that's going on right now is very, very helpful. It's been around for a while, and it's been somewhat prevalent. Home fitness has been around for a long time. I think what a trainer does with his customer, though, is beyond just the fitness end. You know what I mean? It's more the accountability end. And we always say that, and I talk to Frank Nash about this all the time, that, people come to, people have that private, semi-private training, more for the accountability. Obviously the fitness is the end result. But they sort of need that motivation. They need that little thing. So it's things that's very difficult to get through the video and to do online training. The training in person is never going to go away. I've talked to tons of trainers that have done surveys of how many people would come back right now. And it seems like it's about 50%. I think we're right in the 50% realm where, if we went back tomorrow, 50% of the people would come back tomorrow. And I think how we're going to get that percentage higher, obviously, is things that we're doing inside the gym. And I've been listening to a lot of good people over the last 7 weeks of the direction they're going to go and what they need to do. But, I think obviously, cleanliness of a gym has always been one that's been very important. I believe it's still the number one reason why in the past, why women have left gyms. I think it's going to be more prominent, how clean your gym is. How do you clean it? Are you showing people that you're cleaning it while they're there? Everyone knows that already, wiping down things, the distancing of creating different pods in different areas. We've talked about small group training and had presentations on it for the last, 10 years with Alan Cosgrove. Well, I think we're going to pivot and we're going to go back to one-on-one training. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot more one-on-one training going back on, whereas everyone was pivoting and going away from it. But I think we're just going to do about face and go more towards one-on-one again until we get that comfortableness of going back into a gym and feeling 100% comfortable in there. So I think there'll be.
and I'm sorry, Chris, but I don't know, no one knows what even the rules and regulations are going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another big unknown. I mean, you talked about the big box gyms when you got, 50 treadmills basically inches apart. I mean, that's going to be difficult, and the regulations may dictate what has to happen in a lot of these places. And that's really what, could be a scary thing is, again, until you have that information, it may be tough to really make decisions.
Yeah, no, that's true. I definitely agree. Until we have all the information of what the rules are going to be. And, I think some are starting to get in place too about distancing and having space and allowing so many people per square foot. I think they're starting to come up with stuff right now on that. And I think that is going to be, I don't think it's going to be a norm forever. But I think, I don't know how long it's going to be. It's not going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be months. That this may take into effect, but I think trainers are good business people. They're going to know how to pivot into their club. They're going to make, a lot of these guys, this is their livelihood. Everything they've done is built and put into their gym, and they're going to make it work. They're going to pivot and they're going to change to what they have to change. I do think there will be a lot of opportunities for some small gyms. Like I said, if you're taking a lot of the big box gyms and 50% of the people aren't going back, well, they may not go back to a big box, but they may go to a one-on-one, or they may go to something that's a little bit smaller and private where they feel a little bit more comfortable because there's not 100 people in the gym that when they're working out right next to somebody that's, like you said, on a treadmill that's 10 inches away from them.
Yeah. So Chris, you've been, like I said, you have interacted with a lot of successful gym owners. I mean, that's really your business, is being able to, again, you're selling the equipment, you're creating a relationship with these business owners. What are the characteristics that make a successful gym owner? I mean, they're the ones that are going to come out of this and do well. So what are those characteristics that you've seen that, again, you see businesses open, you see businesses close, but there's got to be some common characteristics that those guys that are successful that they have.
Yeah. Definitely the most successful businesses always, they tend to, the owner of it is more business savvy, has more of a business mind or a business background, or has forced themselves to learn more about business. That's sort of the commonality of the good ones. They've done stuff. They've done mastermind mentorships to improve their business skills. Those are the ones that are the more successful ones that have gone down that road and improved their business background more so than improving their training style, more so than they have done with their, learning more exercises.
Well, Chris, I'm going to keep patting you on the back here, and I can't believe I'm doing that, but I haven't had that many beers today. But,
still early.
Exactly. The thing is, you were a teacher and a coach. Obviously, the characteristics I'm looking at with even you is you're a coach, you're a teacher, you're a hard worker, but it goes back to being able to create those relationships. And at the end of the day, being a good guy. And again, that may be as simplistic as you can make it. But even when I started working with you, I immediately recognized that. And I immediately was like, this is somebody I want to be working with. And I think that's one of the main characteristics that, I think it's the no asshole rule that we all need to apply to anything we do, is just that, if you're going to be, I've never had any formal business training. It doesn't sound like to me you've had a lot of formal business training. You're running a very successful business. But at the end of the day, if you just, one of my friends who's had a lot of business education, when I was asking him for some advice about 15 years ago, he just said, don't be an ass and just do what you think is right. And sometimes it is that simple. It is.
Yeah. It's funny, don't be an ass. My older brother, my favorite brother, I have 5 brothers, but my older brother, David, who passed away when I was 20, was actually my high school football coach as well. And he's always been, I've always looked up to him. And one of the things I can always remember him saying to me as a kid, as early as I can remember it. And I don't think anyone has ever said that to me before. Like he's always told me all the time is he always told me, don't be a D-bag. don't, I don't know if I can say it on the podcast, but you can probably bleep it out, but don't be a douchebag. No one likes an asshole. And he would just remind me of that every single time. I think every time I saw him, he would say that to him, even though I wasn't. It was one of the things in my head that knowing that, and that's sort of something that has always stuck with me and to this day that I've always remembered. And I've never, I have times where I'll come out of a meeting or I'll get off of a phone call and I'll have to ask one of my team, or if they were there, is like, was I being an asshole? Was I, because sometimes I criticize myself for getting to that, because I never want to get to that point. And I know sometimes I teeter on it, and then I always bring that back. And so that's been my philosophy. I think that's really, it's as simple as it can get, but I think when you start with that, I think everything else sort of falls into place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if, you can recognize the people that are in any industry. And again, just, you got to bend over backwards to try to take care of the people that are your consumers, your clients, or whoever. At the end of the day, you got to make tough decisions, but make tough decisions that you think are the best for the most people. And I think if, again, as simple as that sounds, I think most people will be successful, especially in an industry where at the end of the day, everybody involved with who we deal with, Chris, is trying to help people. I mean, again, I don't want to sound, get on my, soapbox here, but I will to a degree. Is at the end of the day, we're trying to keep people healthy, keep people performing at their best. And if you just keep that in the back of your mind, things will sometimes fall into place. Yeah,
they tend to, not being a D-bag and loyalty usually are two things that, that go hand in hand with me. And if you have those two things, I think, you're right. Everything does fall into place.
Well, Chris, I'm going to somewhat switch gears here a little bit. And, again, probably one of the areas that you have, and I may be wrong, so you can speak to this, is that you do have a lot of clientele in the professional sports, the high-end collegiate sports world. Do you see major differences in, how what they have to do versus the guy that the person, the owner that has a small box gym, 1,000, 1,500 square feet? What are some of the issues that you see that are some of the challenges that both of those groups? Because again, most people think that everything's great when you have a large budget and a big room, but they still have difficulties. So what are some of the challenges both of those two opposite ends of the spectrums have to deal with?
Talking in COVID right now with what's going on right now?
No, maybe just more before COVID, because obviously COVID has created just a huge, obstacle for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously outside of the business end of it, if you're talking the coach that's in a school setting or a collegiate setting, or even a professional setting, a coach has always been used to working with a lot of people. Always been able to handle, multiple people at one time, knowing what's going on, where, the average trainer, in the past has always been, predominantly one-on-one throughout the years. And obviously as we changed into more a small group, I don't know if this is answering your question, but that's probably the biggest difference I see. It's not, I don't even look at it from a standpoint of the athlete or quality of the movements that they're doing, because I think they're all the same. I think they're this. We've always said this, that the difference between, we always said that everyone's an athlete. So no matter who you train, and moving is an athletic, we're all athletes in some way, but the speed of what a professional player moves at compared to, a 50-year-old former athlete that someone's working with is obviously the speed is different. The exercises may be exactly alike. You may be doing the same thing. So you may have speed difference. You're going to have maybe weight and strength is going to be different, but you're going to be doing the same movements. You're going to be doing the same type of exercises. So it's funny. We haven't seen, in fact, the one thing that we used to, in the early stages, when we used to see that used to really promote and help what we were selling to the mainstream gyms, was that they would see athletes doing it. They'd see clips on ESPN of an athlete running through a ladder, 20 years ago. Now, all of a sudden it's like, hey, let me put it in my gym and we can get 40, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old people going through a ladder. Well, obviously they're not looking as fluid and as smooth, but it still has benefits. We all change direction and movement. We all have to stop, pivot, and change. And, we have to be coordinated with our feet, knowing where our feet are so we're not tripping at at later stages in life. So it all has purpose, but it's the speed, tempo, and the weight that they're applying to the resistance level is really the only thing different.
How do you determine what equipment that you really want to feature? What kind of, is there something you see out there that says, wow, that's really, really cool? And have you been able to see a piece of equipment or see something that someone's using and automatically recognize that, wow, that's going to be a good seller, or, even though this pro athlete's using it, that's a bomb? I mean, because listen, I'm sure you get inundated with people trying to get you to sell their equipment, put it in your catalog, have it featured at a summit. How do you determine what you want to put your reputation behind? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the Perform Better brand. So what helps make that determination for you?
Yeah, very good question.
Of course, it's a good question. I asked it.
It's great because you asked it, of course. It's funny how you say that, because years ago, Lee, we thought we needed 3 different catalogs to show the message of it. We used to have a rehab catalog, a sports performance catalog, and our general Perform Better catalog. So obviously our 3 markets are, which we classify are our rehab market, our sports performance market, and our fitness market. Obviously a lot of interlapping over through all 3. But years ago, we created 3 different catalogs because we felt we had to market each one separately. What we were finding in that is a lot of the equipment was the same equipment that we were doing. We were just showing it maybe a little bit differently, or it wasn't even doing different exercises with it. We were maybe showing, in our Athletica one, we would show a younger athlete or someone with a coach working with them, on going through it. And then in the rehab one, we'd show maybe a therapist with someone, that was a little bit older, doing the same exercise or doing the same thing with that product. And then in the fitness one, we would, show more of a trainer, using it more into a fitness realm. So, but they were all very, very similar. So we decided it wasn't worth it to create 3 catalogs. It was better just to create one catalog and pick products that would cross the line. And every time we take new photos or show photos, one of the things we got to do is we got to show it in a way that, hey, a therapist is going to understand this when we're showing it to him. A coach is going to understand it when he sees that. And same thing with the fitness world, and owner of a gym may understand what it is. So we try to stay away from products that don't cross at least 2 of those barriers, they don't really relate to 2 of them. Like we stick away with things that only just relate to one group, where we try to cross a couple different paths to get in there. So sometimes it's a tough decision. We rely on a lot of feedback from people, obviously, like you and Gray and Mike and a lot of the other guys. We'll ask their, what do they think of a product? That's a very common with us. What do you think of this? Have you heard of this? I mean, we want to know what the professionals think of a product before we put it in, because, again, we don't want to put something in there and then, have it be a product that is too controversial, or, we want to be cutting edge and be the first, but we don't want to be that one to go out there with something that is, that's borderline of a product that's not a good exercise or not the right way to do it. So we use a lot of help, and thankfully we have a lot of good presenters that help us with that are in the field working, that will give us their feedback of it.
No, I mean, it kind of goes back to what you're saying earlier is, whether you're a professional athlete or whether you're just a 45-year-old trying to lose some weight or whatever, at the end of the day, they're both trying to do the same thing. That's try to make sure they're healthy, make sure they can perform at the highest level. And the equipment is no different. The equipment should be able to transcend no matter who is using it, it just goes back to, making sure it's prescribed the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we're talking about professional sports. I mean, right now, there's no telling what's going to be happening over the next, 6 months. But really, Chris, you've really got to be upset. You probably shed a couple of tears to realize that Brady and Gronk are now playing together somewhere else besides New England. You had such a long run. Now, are you going to put on a Tampa Bay hat?
No. I've always been the fan of the team on the front of the jersey, the name on the front and the back. Don't get me wrong. I was a huge Brady fan. I was a huge Gronk fan. But usually when they go to play for somebody else, I'll be a Brady fan again when he retires or if he comes back to New England, but no. It's definitely, I'm not that guy that was, just a fan of Brady and not a fan of the Patriots. I was a fan of the Patriots, the whole Patriot team, not just Tom Brady.
Yeah, I understand. It's tough these days because, the guys are leaving. The guys are going all over the place. It's hard. When you and I were probably coming up, I was a huge Washington Redskins fans back in the 80s, and John Riggins, Theismann, those guys, the Hogs, they were one team, one group of guys for most of their career. It's tough these days when you got guys that, especially in certain sports, that they're leaving after a couple of years, and trying to keep up with them is hard.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's professional sports now.
Yeah. Well, Chris, listen, I appreciate you coming on and spending some time. Like I said, I wanted to focus a little bit different, especially with your expertise and having your background on, just to kind of get a little bit more background on, how you got to where you are and how you've been successful. And again, with your view of this industry being somewhat unique, I thought it'd be good to kind of, get your take on some things. So thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
That'll do it for this episode of the Movement Podcast. Thanks for listening. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and share it with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about our system and take the next step in your movement journey, visit us at functionalmovement.com. Until next time, be sure to move well, move often.